So I'll either get kicked out of the league or
No,
just
they
get
know better
targeted
than
next
that.
year.
They didn't like my comments on Paige Becker's.
No way.
I didn't even say anything bad. But I'm officially 3 for 3 on being fined by the WNBA.
They thought financial intimidation would silence the voice that dared speak truth to their corrupt system. But Sophie Cunningham didn't just refuse to be bought. She exposed the entire machine, and now the WNBA's darkest secrets are spilling into the light. This isn't about basketball anymore. This is about institutional control, systematic suppression, and a league so desperate to protect its image that it weaponized player salaries against their own workforce. What started as routine podcast commentary became the most explosive revelation of corruption in women's sports history.
Hey, another thing, I don't know why this reminded me of just like games, you asking about Bria, but I'm officially 3 for 3 on being fined by the WNBA.
3 fines, 3 calculated strikes against a player whose only crime was refusing to pretend the emperor had clothes. But this story runs deeper than any individual penalty. This is about an organization so fragile, so terrified of authentic criticism, that it created a financial weapon to suppress the very players who built its foundation. The WNBA's fine system isn't random punishment. It is surgical suppression. Cunningham was first hit with $500 for a TikTok criticizing officials. When that didn't silence her, they tripled the penalty to $1,500 for similar podcast comments. And when she still refused to conform, another undisclosed fine for discussing preferential treatment of referees towards certain players.
They didn't like my comments on Paige Becker's.
No way.
I didn't even say anything bad.
This wasn't about protecting league integrity. This was about protecting league image at any cost. The systematic nature of these penalties reveals a chilling pattern. Each fine escalated in severity, creating a clear message: conform or pay. The league wasn't just punishing criticism, it was engineering fear among its own workforce. But here is where Cunningham's story becomes revolutionary. She refused to be intimidated by escalating consequences. Instead of silence, she chose strategic resistance.
I just can't wait till off season so that I can rip them and then they can't find me. So
This declaration transformed her from silenced employee to institutional whistleblower. She didn't just resist the machine, she studied it, learned its limitations, and planned her counterattack.
You can't be fined in the winter?
am I getting a paycheck in the winter?
Cunningham exposed the league's jurisdictional weaknesses while mapping her next moves in this chess match against institutional control. The implications are staggering. A player earning $100,000 annually was being systematically financially penalized for exercising basic free speech rights. The cumulative fines totaled over $2,000, representing more than 2% of her entire salary, simply for expressing frustration with officiating inconsistencies that have been acknowledged league. The most chilling revelation exposes the league's long-term retaliation capabilities.
So I'll either get kicked out of the league or
No,
just
they
get
know better
targeted
than
next
that.
year.
This statement reveals the true scope of institutional power. The league doesn't just punish current dissent, it threatens future employment for those who refuse to conform. In any other industry, this would constitute clear workplace retaliation and potential legal action. But in the WNBA's closed ecosystem, it is just Tuesday. Cunningham's situation isn't isolated. It is symptomatic of a league-wide culture of intimidation that extends far beyond individual fines. Multiple players and coaches have prefaced their responses to media officiating questions by saying they didn't want to get fined, revealing the chilling effect the league's penalty system has created across the entire organization. Angel Reese became another high-profile casualty, stating, "It has to be fixed, and I am tired of this," after experiencing similar officiating inconsistencies. Kelsey Plum exploded after a game, declaring, "I drive more than anyone in the league, so to shoot 6 free throws is absolutely absurd. I got scratches on my face, I got scratches on my body." These aren't isolated complaints. They represent a systemic failure that the league has chosen to suppress rather than address. The officiating problems are so widespread that major sports publications have declared the WNBA's officiating crisis bigger than any individual player, noting it is a structural problem for the entire WNBA. Yet, instead of fixing the underlying issues, the league chooses to financially punish those who dare articulate them publicly. The economic weapon becomes even more insidious when examined against league structure. WNBA referees are paid by the game and generally work NCAA games in the winter, while NBA referees are salaried employees. The league is spending more energy and resources punishing players for criticizing part-time officials than fixing the underlying structural problems that create these conflicts. When confronted with systematic criticism, the WNBA's response revealed its true priorities. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert announced the league was on it regarding officiating concerns, stating they were working hard to make sure we're putting the best product out on the court. But while Engelbert pledged improvement publicly, her organization was simultaneously escalating financial penalties against players raising these exact concerns. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. Acknowledge the problem in press conferences while punishing those who dare articulate it in podcasts. The public's response to Cunningham's defiance tells the real story about where power actually lies. Following her court altercation defending Caitlin Clark, Cunningham gained 700,000 followers on TikTok and more than 244,000 newcomers on Instagram in just 3 days. Marketing experts calculated this growth would cost brands more than $1 million to achieve organically. The market spoke definitively. Fans supported authentic passion over institutional conformity. While the league punished Cunningham with escalating fines, the public rewarded her with unprecedented social media growth and jersey sales that were listed as unavailable for weeks. The disconnect couldn't be clearer. The WNBA was fighting a war against its own audience, punishing the very authenticity that fans craved. The officiating crisis extends far beyond individual games or players. Even WNBA Finals games have been marred by inconsistent officiating, with coaches stating they've never seen such inconsistent officiating in professional basketball. The fundamental problem lies in the official development system. Referees move back and forth between WNBA and NCAA games with different rule sets, creating inherent inconsistency that players like Cunningham have been financially penalized for highlighting. Behind closed doors, the league's messaging became even more disturbing. During the fining process, team officials were pulled aside and told about impending penalties, creating a culture of institutional intimidation that extended beyond individual players to entire organizations. The message was clear: criticism would not be tolerated, and resistance would be met with escalating financial consequences. The league's approach revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of its own product. Instead of addressing widespread officiating complaints that were affecting game quality and fan experience, the WNBA chose to attack the messengers. This wasn't quality control, this was damage control taken to authoritarian extremes. Even Cunningham's family joined the resistance, with her sister publicly stating the WNBA should focus less on fining players for commenting on poor officiating and more on hiring officials who can call consistent games and protect athletes. The institutional response had become so aggressive that it was turning families into critics and advocates into enemies. What Cunningham exposed goes beyond sports. It is a masterclass in how institutions protect themselves at the expense of their own workforce. The league created a system where players earning modest salaries face disproportionate financial penalties for criticism. Part-time officials receive more protection than full-time athletes. Institutional image takes precedence over product quality. Systematic problems are addressed through censorship rather than reform, and future employment becomes conditional on present silence. The most telling aspect of this entire saga is how the league's response validated every criticism Cunningham raised. By choosing punishment over problem, solving, escalation over engagement, and retaliation over reform, the WNBA exposed its true priorities. Every fine issued, every threat of future retaliation, every attempt to silence legitimate concerns reinforced the fundamental truth she revealed. The WNBA prioritizes control over quality, image over integrity, and institutional protection over athlete advocacy. This isn't about one player versus one league. This is about a systemic failure of institutional leadership that chose suppression over self-reflection. Sophie Cunningham didn't just expose poor officiating. She revealed an entire apparatus built on fear, financial intimidation, and the systematic silencing of inconvenient truths. The league's response to her criticism became more damning than the original criticism itself. By escalating penalties rather than addressing concerns, by threatening future employment rather than fixing present problems, choosing institutional protection over athlete welfare, the WNBA accidentally provided the most comprehensive indictment of its own dysfunction. Sophie Cunningham didn't plan to become a revolutionary. She simply refused to accept that speaking truth should come with a price tag. In doing so, she may have accidentally saved a league from its own worst instincts, forcing a reckoning that was decades overdue. The revolution isn't coming. It is already here, and it has Sophie Cunningham's fingerprints all over it. Every fine issued in her name, every threat made against her future, every attempt to silence her voice has only amplified the message. Authentic criticism cannot be purchased, suppressed, or silenced. The machine tried to break her. Instead, she exposed the machine. And in professional sports, that might be the most dangerous thing you can do. Because once the curtain is pulled back, once the systematic corruption is revealed, once the financial intimidation tactics are laid bare, there is no going back to the comfortable lies that kept the system functioning. Sophie Cunningham didn't just speak truth to power. She made power show its true face. And that face is uglier than anyone imagined.